In this video, we're going to cover how we cut this curved pelmet entirely using manual processes. So it's going to include the use of a jigsaw and a router, the making of a jig, and our process for finishing the edge of MDF to get a very fine sprayed finish, which I've been getting requests to cover in more detail. We fitted this to match up with a project that we fitted some weeks ago, which had a curve based partly on the existing curve in the room divider there. These ones were cut by CNC, so we drew them out in CAD and sent them for cutting. The pelmet I've just fitted was cut by hand, but we've achieved just as smooth of a curve. So I'll take you back to the workshop and we'll go through how we did it. So the way I'm doing it is I've plotted the shape based on the previous design, which also referred to an arch in another room in the house. And sometimes you just need to get stuff done quick. So I found an old laminated sheet and I've just measured and drilled two little holes at 150mm apart. So I'm finding something sharp, doesn't matter too much what it is, that's going to be my pivot. I'm going to put that in that hole, straight on that cross point there, and then I'm going to put my pencil point in the other hole and give myself my cut. And that, if I've plotted it right, is going to land right on the top of the circle. And this is something that to me is important when you're setting out this sort of thing. I think curves look good if they either meet perpendicular, which is effectively at a right angle to another curve, or at a tangent, which means it's sort of flying off in the same direction. I did freehand that line. I just did a couple quick sweeps, just holding a pencil and sort of pivoting my arm. And I decided that top one was good enough. So that is one of the downsides of Abranet. We use Abranet because it gets all the dust through the face of it, but if you're working on the edge, it tears up really easily. So we probably would do well to have some normal ones in reserve. I don't think we do we? Not at the right size.
Not at the right size.
Hey, haven't we got a 5-inch?
Yeah.
Is it 5-inch?
Yeah.
Base plate? Yeah. Okay, we never use that, but this is a perfect use, isn't it? Ooh.
Once you've done that, it should just spin off.
Okay. See, this is the difference with the Deros versus the Keros, which we used to have, but it broke after very heavy usage, so it was a good machine. The Keros you could either buy in a 6-inch or 5-inch version, but this one has the replaceable base plate. So I'll work on taking the obvious lumps off, and then what I usually find works is just to move the sander quite quickly back and forth, trying to follow the curve, and it'll smooth it all off.
Yeah.
So this is the Trend T11 router. It's a variation on the T10 which we used to have, but that burnt out after a lot of use. The T10 is made for hand routing, the T11 is made for router table routing, and the difference is that this column has this special brass nut which normally is the other way up. So that square bit locks into there, and in a router table it enables adjustment of the height using it's like a Torx bit in there, so you can fine adjust it without a router lift. Now we don't actually use it in the router table very often because we have an old Hitachi which is permanently set up over there. We use this just because the T10 burnt out. There's a nice smooth curve, perfectly perpendicular to the face because it was cut with a router. You may have noticed that I marked my centre line. Oh, and I actually marked it here, forgetting that it would get cut off, but I can work that out. I can line that up. So I've got a mark here, because this is the opposite side now, so I can get that onto there. I can get that touching here and all parallel, and then I'll cut again. You know, I was saying how hard it is to collect all the dust when you're routing. Well, this demonstrates it pretty well. It's been chucking out dust over to these pristine units that Brady's just been assembling after spraying. Since we got this in the workshop, and you might be interested, this is what we call a split unit. It's an alcove cabinet that's got doors at the top of it. It's particularly wide, so to make it easier and safer to assemble on side, we split it in two. So that part over there is going to sit on a base cabinet with doors that you can't see at the moment. This is going to sit on top of the other one. What I've done is I've clamped the straight edge of that offcut over the top there, and there's just that ever so slight bump down, which I've decided I'm going to pare off with the chisel. So I'm going to cut the shape off the longer board now. I've made my mark of where I want to cut, and I've set my rail just about the blade width beyond the mark so that I can rest the rail on the more solid piece. Looking at it now, it's not bad, but Brady and I both feel that I've flattened off a bit much on the top. It's like it curves up to a point and then it's pretty much just flat across. My own fault for freehanding it rather than setting out an ellipse or a large arc, which just would have taken a bit longer. So I am going to freehand sand it back just to take it a bit further back. That's definitely got more of a curve on it.
Yeah.
That'll do. Do a bit of hand sanding on the curve. Here's a little tip for you if you've not heard it before. With routers that loosen and tighten with two spanners, the easiest way to get the power you need is to position them like that and do it one-handed. Seems counterintuitive, but that one-handed method is stronger. Next, it's a lot of hand sanding down to 240, I think would be good. With 180 then 240. Sanding into that curve, getting that edge not quite so sharp, and then round the other edges, which are just going to sit kind of overlaid, overlapping the window reveal. We'll use this 2mm Aris rounding bit to soften them off front and back, and then we'll be ready to spray it. Something I wasn't aware of till now, because I usually don't do this level of sanding, it's usually Brady, is if you use the Abranet and you're rubbing it like that, it can actually leave these horizontal grooves. I don't know if you can quite see them there. So you're best go into a normal bit of sandpaper, and I'm getting good results with this fresh piece of 400 grit, because that will polish it right up flat. Yeah, well, it needs a bit more, but you can get it to this really flat marbled effect. Brady's the expert at this, so he's just offered to take it off me. So I think I'll take him up on that and get on to the next thing.